ditch the diesel. I am on my way to grab a new truck. Stay tuned and let's check it out. This isn't going to be a debate of gas or diesel, which is better. Everybody knows diesel is better. There's zero doubt that diesel is better at pulling grades, at accelerating. It's got almost twice as much torque, not quite, but almost twice as much torque. Kicks in at a lower RPM range. That's not debatable. For starters, I know there's going to be some thoughts from a few diesel fanboys, and I'm not going to put those down. I like the diesel. This has been a great truck. I have had zero issues with it. I've had no emissions issues. Granted, I've only had it for about 10,000 miles. And my previous one was a 6.6 gas. I probably have some videos of that somewhere. I had that for a very short amount of time. The 6-speed transmission had some issues, so was getting it looked at to get fixed, and they had this sitting on the lot for a really, really good price, and I figured I would give it a shot. So I dove into the Duramax world, and a year later towed, like I said, put about 10,000 miles on it. Of that, towing is probably 6,000 would be my guess. So if I have a diesel truck, and, well, to be honest, I don't own anything on the diesel truck, it's all paid for, why would I trade it off if it's such a good towing platform? This is what I tow, by the way, this Grand Design fifth wheel. Loaded, it's only about 10,000 pounds, 10.5, so diesel doesn't, or the Duramax really doesn't break much of a sweat. So why would I trade it off? Well, to be honest, even though I haven't had any issues, obviously it gives you anxiety, like when's something going to break? And yes, I know something can break on anything, but my odds of it breaking by breaking I mean emissions or something else, throwing a code, on a diesel, I think is arguably higher than the 6.6 gas motor. With my kind of weight range, it's not really that big of a deal, I wouldn't think. The one I'm looking at is, here's a sticker. You can see what it's rated. You can see the payload amounts here. And that's actually higher. Well, the payload's actually higher than my diesel truck. And here's the sticker on the diesel truck. So the payload on this is actually a little bit higher. But you can still see, though, when I put them side by side, that the pin weight is basically the same. And you can see the biggest change on these 24 models with the, I assume it's with the Allison branded transmission. I'm not going to get into that debate in this. I assume because of that transmission, it is capable of towing more, perhaps. I'm not sure what else changed, but the numbers from the 6.6 6-speed and the 24s with the 10-speed went up several thousand pounds in towing. Like I said, I had a 6.6 gas before, and I think that was rated somewhere around 16,000 pounds for towing. And you can see this one's rated for 18,400. And the diesel, my Duramax, is rated for 18,600. So for my towing needs, obviously both trucks are well within, but the gas especially is pretty much right at what a diesel is from a pure numbers rating standpoint on the tag. So back to why I'm ditching the diesel. To be honest, the miles per gallon and things was pretty disappointing compared to the gas I had. So for all the people saying, all the diesel guys saying that, you know, it's somehow they try to justify it's cheaper, you get payback, you get higher trade value, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's, of course you're going to get a higher trade value because you're spending $9,900 and change right out of the gate. So I would assume because your MSRP value is higher, your trade value is going to higher. That's a pretty easy argument to make. However, when I've done extensive market research looking for various used vehicles and such, you're finding the used diesels not at $10,000 in value higher than the gas brethren. You're finding them $2,000 to $5,000 higher than the gas brethren. So not only are you paying that up front, you're also not getting anywhere near what they think they're getting back in return as far as recapturing some of that extra upfront cost. Okay, so for my findings, that doesn't seem to be a valid argument. The next is miles per gallon. Yes, they are slightly more efficient, and I'll say slightly. So if you look at this here, here's my miles per gallon average that I pulled when we went on about a 1,000-mile trip. I averaged around 8 to 8.5 miles per gallon towing. Now granted, I was going between 65 and 70, 72 on the interstate. I have found that on these trucks, every 5 miles per hour you go, it seems to drop half to almost 1 full mile per gallon. The life of the vehicle, let's see if I can find that here. The life of the vehicle, this is a 400-mile average. You can see the average is 13.6. Best is 20.6. That's probably going about 55 miles per hour with the wind pushing me. But because majority of the miles on this are towing, I guess probably less than half of the 10,000, so maybe around 5,000 miles are towing. I don't have the trailer hooked up in the app. The app would show me, the trailering app here would show me how many miles the trailer's put on this truck. But you can see the average is 13.6. As I was saying, I was getting between 8 and under 8.5 towing there. And when I had the gas with a 6 speed, I was getting about 7.5. So I think you can safely say that, and that was with the same trailer, I think you can safely say that the diesel gets you 0.75 to about 1 mile per gallon better. However, diesel prices have been coming down, but they're still not, they're still 20 to 30, 40 cents here per gallon over gas. So when you start to do that math out, it's actually more expensive per mile to drive the diesel than it is to drive the gas, even though it's 1 mile per gallon more efficient. But that also excludes the upfront $10,000. And guys say you'll pay that back, but if your gas costs more per mile, obviously it's virtually impossible to pay that back. The downside is, of course, when they both have 36-gallon tanks, so your range is ever so slightly farther on the diesel, which brings me to my next point. So point number 2 is fueling stations. So I have to admit, when you're hitched up to the trailer, it is awesome to pull into the big rig station and fuel on the bigger pumps, and plenty of space to maneuver with the trailer attached versus a regular gas station. So that I have debated, that piece will be missed. Now, on the flip side, some of the small towns and areas that we've gone camping at, diesel isn't always readily available 100% of the time. there's been a few towns we went to where the one gas station in town did not have a diesel pump, so you have to drive maybe to the next town or look on our app. We use the Open Roads app for a little bit of cost savings. You have to look on an app to try to find where a fueling station is, whereas with gas, obviously, pretty much everywhere. So that was something that we ran into a few times over the last year, is just not having very many options, or any options at all, for diesel without having to go a little further to find a pump. Bonus points if you can tell where we are. Clinton Falls. We're in Minnesota. Okay, anyway. While we're discussing extra costs of a diesel, I'd be remiss to mention, the maintenance costs, the oil changes, the fuel filters, all those things that people on the internets, on Facebook groups, on whatever bring up. And I don't really think it's that big of a deal. I'm not going to base it in my numbers, because the diesel oil change, yes, it's about twice as much as a gas, but then you also don't have to do it as much. So the costs aren't significant. I don't think it's worth worrying about. So I kind of make that a moot point, in my opinion. And damn it, what the hell? Now, with all that being said, it was a very hard, long decision. I thought about this a long time. My wife doesn't care at all, but I went back and forth. Would I miss it? Would I miss it? Would I miss the power? It is more fun to drive, no doubt about that. It was fun to drive. It pulled fantastic. The exhaust brake is something that maybe missed. Again, we're in the plains, we're in Iowa, and we really don't have mountains or big hills to speak of. And if we do, it'll be like an occasional trip, in which case it will handle just fine, obviously, for that amount of usage a year. And I just decided that, all the other cons probably outweighed the fun that the diesel was, and being able to go up a hill a little bit quicker. What am I getting? I am getting this bad boy. I'm going with a 2024 2500 GMC Sierra HD in the AT4 in this beautiful volcanic red finish. Anyway, that pretty much covers it. I do like the diesel. It definitely has its place. I'm not bashing the diesel, but for my particular uses, and with this new 6.6 gas platform and 10 speed and these ratings, it just doesn't seem to make much sense.